Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is an emergency video because the girls are fighting, and you've seen the title. Taylor Swift and Charli XCX are kind of in the midst of a feud, and as someone who has been a Swiftie for forever as well as an Angel, I just wanted to kind of give you like the TLDR on all of this and explain really how we got here, because there's a lot of stuff that I've seen floating around the internet that one, isn't true, or two, just like is missing a ton of context. So without further ado, I just want to hop into it because this is extremely messy. Let's go back to when they first met, 2014 iHeartRadio's Jingle Ball in New York. Charli and Taylor are publicly meeting up for the first time. They took a photo, it got posted to the internet, and this is really the first time anyone publicly saw them together. I don't know if there was times where they saw each other privately, but to my knowledge, that is the first time they've ever actually met. In early 2015, then Charli goes into the BBC Radio 1 Live Lounge and covers Shake It Off. This made a lot of news. The BBC Radio 1 Live Lounge is a really great place where artists go to cover music of those that they really love and respect. And Shake It Off was one of the biggest songs of 2014, so Charli went to put her own little spin on it. Fast forward to October of that year, Charli gets brought out at the 1989 World Tour in Toronto to sing Boom Clap with Taylor Swift. Now, this wasn't like a random cameo. Part of the 1989 World Tour was that Taylor brought out a guest at every single stop on this tour, and Charli just happened to be that show's guest. But the two of them sung Boom Clap together, and while it's not my favorite performance of the two of them, they put on a united front. Like, they seem to be friends, or at least friendly behind the scenes. Then we're quiet for a couple years. These two admire each other from afar. Nothing really happened publicly that we know of that made any sort of headline. In March of 2018, Taylor Swift announced the openers for the Reputation Stadium tour, including Charli XCX and Camila Cabello. These were the biggest crowds Charli had really played on a consistent basis up until that point, and she really liked the experience while on the tour. She seemed like she was having a great time. She had great things to say about Taylor, until afterwards when she rocked the boat a little bit. In 2019, she did an interview with Pitchfork where she basically said every night at the Reputation tour, she felt like she was getting up on stage and waving to 5-year-olds. But in the interview, she did say that she really appreciated the experience and Taylor for taking a chance on her, and continued on to say that that tour made her realize that she never wanted to be an opening act again. She explained it put her in this underdog character archetype, and that is something that she really wanted to break free from, and that's totally valid. Like, the 5-year-old comment, though, is something that enraged Swifties on the internet. They were like, this is so ungrateful for you to say. After receiving a lot of backlash for that comment, Charli actually took to social media and wrote out a notes app explaining that her words were taken out of context. She says that Taylor was amazing throughout the tour, and again, thanked her for everything. But where she was coming from was she had been playing 18+ shows prior to that, and she really had to change the way that she looked at these performances because there were more families and younger people at the Reputation tour than at the clubs that Charli was performing at. She said that she needed to approach these performances with a little bit of a different energy. And again, that makes sense. I don't know where things got lost in translation between her and Pitchfork, or if she was covering up. I really don't know, and I'm not trying to like push that onto her. I think that she probably could have said that, and Pitchfork just took her words and wrote something that became more of a buzzy headline. But that is how she kind of explained it after the fact. September of 2019 rolls around. Charli goes on a UK talk show called Sunday Brunch. She sings Taylor's praises, says that she's an excellent businesswoman, and the Reputation tour really felt like a girl gang. They were all this united front, and it was a super, super safe and welcoming space. Then we go quiet again. I mean, 2020, we all know what happened then, but these two were really in their own separate lanes. Like, they weren't overlapping, crossing paths, and that's totally fine. But we get to 2023, and then these two start to see a lot of each other. In January of 2023, Taylor Swift showed up at a 1975 show at the O2 Arena in London to sing The City and Antihero. This was her first live performance of Antihero, but she came out to sing with Maddie Healy, who we later find out she was in a 1-month situationship with, but at that time, we still thought Taylor was dating Joe Alwyn. Little did we know that she was with Maddie. And then a week later, Charli came out at the Manchester 1975 show to sing Vroom Vroom. Now, again, if you are not really online, you may not know this tidbit, but Charli XCX was dating George Daniel, the 1975 drummer at the time. So they were really seeing a lot of each other. George and Maddie are best friends. Charli was always with the 1975, and then in 2023, Taylor was really with Maddie a lot. So it really seems like it is between this time where Charli and Taylor spend a lot of time behind the scenes together. Now, we don't really see them out a lot together, but they definitely were interacting and seeing each other not in the public eye, which I think a lot of this stuff stems from that we're gonna get into in a little bit. In May of 2024, Charli is doing her Brat rollout. She releases the 4th single to the project 360, and it has this music video that is star-studded. It has a lot of like niche people, Quen Blackwell, Gabriette Bechtel, who is Maddie Healy's current fiance, Emma Chamberlain, Julia Fox, Rachel Sennett, Alex Consani, and there was a tweet that went viral the day it was released saying that it was the Bad Blood music video for people who do a certain substance. And Gabriette actually posted that on her story. Now, I don't take this as any sort of insult to Taylor. I don't think anyone really did. I think for the most part, people thought that it was funny. It's just crazy to see where we are now because who knows what Gabriette meant in the moment. Because a month later, Charli XCX releases her critically acclaimed album Brat. And on it, there's a track titled Sympathy is a Knife. And the lyrics really point to this song being about Taylor. I don't want to share the space. I don't want to force a smile. This one girl taps my insecurities. She then goes on to say that she doesn't want to see her backstage at her boyfriend's show. Fingers crossed behind my back. I hope they break up. And these are really where we're like, okay, who would make her feel insecure and also be backstage at her boyfriend's show other than Taylor? Taylor is this larger-than-life persona. This was right before and during the Eras Tour, so Taylor was absolutely larger than life. Charli, who has had this niche fan base, this cult fan base throughout her career, how would she not compare herself to the biggest pop star in the world at that time? I don't view this as a diss track, more of Charli coping with her own insecurity and the things that she projects onto herself, if that makes sense. There are some kind of rude lyrics, but again, like I don't see them as diss track lyrics. Like the song is about Taylor Swift, but if I were Taylor, I would maybe see where she's coming from. I will say it is interesting though, because while people were really quick to understand that this song was about Taylor Swift, there was another track on this record, Girl So Confusing, which was clearly about Lorde, and Charli XCX wanted to give Lorde a heads up about this track, and she called her to tell her about it. And that is how the remix came about. But it seems like Taylor wasn't given that same phone call, or we just don't know if it happened, but I feel like a lot of the things that have happened currently in 2025 maybe wouldn't have happened had Charli maybe talked this through with Taylor back in 2024. Things continued to get rockier because a month later, Charli XCX did a photo shoot and interview with New York Magazine where she has this blow up hand and she's like holding it and it's next to her and it's chopped off and it's bloody, and on it is a friendship bracelet that says Charli XCX. Now, friendship bracelets were the signature accessory of the Eras Tour. So people immediately said, okay, so you're shading Taylor Swift in Sympathy is a Knife. You're going to do this photo shoot that clearly alludes to you kind of cutting off the hand that feeds you in a way. I mean, Taylor wanted Charli to be her act, her opening act on the Reputation tour. And this, to some Swifties, felt like Charli was cutting off this hand saying, I'm a solo act now. I don't need to thank the people that allowed me to perform in places like stadiums during the Reputation tour. That is how some Swifties reacted to this shoot. In this article, Charli is also explicitly asked about Sympathy is a Knife. And I'm just gonna read this quote because I don't want to misconstrue it. She says, people are gonna think what they wanna think. That song is about me and my feelings and my anxiety and the way my brain creates narratives and stories in my head when I feel insecure and how I don't want to be in those situations physically when I feel self-doubt. This tracks with what she says in the song. She does not talk about whether or not it's about Taylor Swift. That is why we have not gotten any actual confirmation who it's about, but we are all reading in between the lines to deduce that it is. New York Magazine is even messier for doing this because they actually reached out to Taylor Swift for a quote about Charli XCX regarding the success of Brat Summer for this piece. It's like, what if you just called Taylor up? And they did. And I'm gonna read this one so I don't mince Taylor's words either, but she said, I've been blown away by Charli's melodic sensibility since I first heard Stay Away in 2011. Her writing is surreal and inventive always. She just takes the song to places you would never expect it to go, and she's been doing it consistently for over a decade. I love to see hard work like that pay off. And it's really interesting, again, because Actually Romantic was something that she was currently working on musically at this time. Like, she was working on The Life of a Showgirl during the European leg of the Eras Tour, which is taking place during the summer of 2024. So she is writing Actually Romantic about Charli. giving a call to the New York Magazine and saying she's everything, she's awesome, while Charli also just released Sympathy is a Knife. So it's like really messy. Dave LaChapelle, the photographer, was actually asked about this because there was so much Swiftie backlash to this photo shoot, and this is what he said. She's sort of trapped by fame and the tabloid photographers are chasing her. An animal trapped in the woods wouldn't bite off its own limb. She bites off her hand. As she lies on the stretcher, you see people still taking photos of her, the paparazzi and the fans. People watch the rise as much as they'll watch the fall. Then she's brought to the hospital and probably given some sort of painkiller. She's hallucinating. She's stuck in the dreamscape, but in the end, she frees herself. Swifties were not buying this either. I look at the photo shoot, I see that story. I just don't understand why the friendship bracelet had to be there, if not to be Taylor shade. That is kind of the part that loses me a little bit. Fast forward to the 2025 Grammys. Taylor is in attendance to present the Album of the Year, which she gave to Beyonce. Charli XCX is nominated for many awards and is actually given the coveted Last Performance spot. She does a medley from Brat, and Taylor Swift is out of her chair, swinging around a champagne bottle and having the best time of her life. Everyone was like, they must be good because Taylor's having the best time to Charli's performance. Mind you, Actually Romantic is fully in the vault. It is mixed and mastered and ready to go at this point. Now we get into the life of a showgirl. Leading up to this album's release, there were leaks. The vinyls were sent to warehouses pretty early because there was a huge stock of them and people were taking photos of the lyrics inside and putting them on the internet. So the lyrics to this project got released like a month and a half in advance, I believe, and people were very quick to look at that and clock Actually Romantic as a Charli XCX diss track. Gabriette actually fueled this fire by commenting on Veronica, who is a new SNL cast member's post. She did this series where she was reenacting what she thought each of the Taylor Swift songs would sound like without knowing the lyrics, of course. And she commented, "Babe, record Actually Romantic, please." This implies that Gabriette had seen the leaks. Like, why would she pick that song if she didn't know what it was about? Really quick TLDR here is like, Gabriette and Maddie Healy started dating really quickly after Taylor and Maddie split. I mean, I don't think that's a problem. Taylor started dating Travis like pretty soon after as well. But Gabriette was friends with Charli. Charli introduced Gabriette to Maddie, and the rest was history. But people have always been kind of quick to like pit Maddie still against Taylor and pit Gabriette against her by proxy. But this time, the Swifties were really enraged by what she was saying. So they were spamming her tags in Instagram with like horrible photos of her to shade her after that comment was posted. And this was also like a month before the album at least, so it was already messy. Then October 3rd comes around, The Life of a Showgirl is released. People immediately clock the lyrics to Actually Romantic. They're like, this is a Charli diss track and this is crazy. Now, I heard you call me boring Barbie when the Coke's got your brain is the opening lyrics to this song. Do I think it's a cheap shot? Yes. However, do I think this song is a direct response to Sympathy is a Knife? Not really. This song implies that there was a lot more that happened behind the scenes, and I also don't believe it is fully directed at Charli XCX. I believe that Taylor combined everyone in that friend group and created them into one person that she was writing this diss track to, including Maddie, Gabriette, Charli, and a couple of other people in that group. I don't believe it was like completely addressed to Charli, but I don't know. I just don't know why they would both do this. Charli's was written more from a place of insecurity in the way that she views herself and how she can't be in the same room as someone who makes her feel less than. And I get that take, but some of the lyrics, yeah, like I think Taylor has the right to respond. But I don't, like it implies that there's a lot more going on here that Taylor's now bringing to the surface and to the public. And that's where it kind of loses me, because I think that this is something that should be resolved in private and like we shouldn't all know about it. But since they both put it out there publicly, like that's why I feel like it is the domain for me to speak on it, because it's both sides are doing it. However, if you're a casual Swiftie or just a listener of the album because it's a Taylor Swift album and everyone kind of tunes in, you maybe wouldn't have caught that. Hence this video, I just decided to give kind of the context on why we are where we are between these two people. And I'm really interested to see where we go from here. I mean, it's been very clear. Taylor's done a ton of interviews for this project. She's been asked about specific tracks. They are being told not to ask her about Actually Romantic. And that totally makes sense. She doesn't want to add any fuel to the fire. But at the same time, the fire's been fueled. So where do we go from here? Because the fan reaction has been crazy. Charli XCX's mentions and comments, they're blowing up. Same thing with Taylor Swift, because the general public maybe didn't love this album, or even Swifties. So they're kind of trying to pick at her as well, using Actually Romantic as a cheap shot. And then on Sunday, October 5th, Charli took to Twitter to post a video of her in the studio with a new snippet to some new music, and people immediately thought that this was her response diss track. Now, Charli is doing the music for Wuthering Heights, the movie that comes out in February 2026. I believe this snippet to be a part of Wuthering Heights and Charli just feeding into the moment, and that was really, really smart. But Charli's gonna feed into it, of course, and again, I'm gonna talk about it because if they're feeding into it from both sides, then of course I'm gonna speak on it. However, this snippet got like 13 million views over the course of 24 hours, and people are like, release the diss track, and Charli's not really engaging with any of it. She also was in Paris and posting and like doing her normal thing, so again, she's kind of not involving herself except for putting out that one tweet, and Taylor hasn't spoken about the track itself, so it feels like the two of them are kind of at this stalemate where they're not going to do anything, they're not going to speak on it, and we'll see if Charli releases anything. I highly doubt that she will. She has some movies of her own coming out. She is doing the music for Wuthering Heights. She's booked and busy. Taylor's also booked and busy, so maybe they're just going to call it a truce and move forward, but I don't really know. What are your thoughts on all of this though? Because it has been so wild. I just feel like there is something crazy that happened behind the scenes where these two people just like clearly very much will not get along ever, and they brought it to the public, and now we're like, oh my God. It's kind of crazy because we haven't had a diva off like this in a very long time. That's kind of the context that you need to know, and have a great week. Please like, comment, subscribe, share all of the things, and I will see you guys next week.